there! Welcome to Jackie Talks Horror. I'm Jackie, and today I'm doing a spoiler-free review of the surprisingly good multiverse film Redux Redux from January this year, 2026. Just a quick heads up, I'll be using images and trailers from the film in this video, and there'll be links to the trailers in the description down below. Redux Redux featured in my coming January-February 2026 video, where it caught my attention because it seemed to offer the kind of moral and personal struggle that I like to see characters in a film go through. What I thought was just going to be an enjoyable but simple revenge story of search, kill, travel and repeat turned out to be so much more than that. So let's get into it, starting with the cast and characters. This film has three main characters. First, we have Irene, played by Michaela McManus. Irene's teenage daughter has been killed, and the film follows her as she travels parallel universes in the hope of finding one where she is still alive and seeking knowledge from and taking revenge on the murderer in those universes where he's killed her. I thought she resembled a mix of both the Sarah Connors from the first two Terminator movies, a combination of figuring things out as she goes along and being hardened and feeling like she has no option but to carry on. McManus was perfection in this role, playing Irene with a gritty resolve, yet never letting us forget the maternal rage and feelings that are fueling this journey. Next up is Maya, played by Stella Marcus. Maya is a teenage runaway and pretty let down by all the adults that have been in her life. She seems civil as a character, and I know some people thought that she wasn't likeable at all, but I thought her spark balanced the more robot-like Irene beautifully in their scenes. Marcus shows us a human and childlike need to be watched out for by adults behind Maya's bravado and blistering anger against the adults that have let her down. Irene and Maya seem to slowly get to understand and trust each other throughout the film, and it's their dynamic that keeps the film interesting, as both are used to being on their own and doing their own thing and how they want to do it. They both had different ways of holding their own. Other than those two, the only character that has some decent screen time is Neville, played by Jeremy Holm. Neville is a character that Irene is chasing after finding he killed her daughter, and you really don't get to know much about him except that, and that he's not a nice person in general. Holm plays Neville very well, showing the confusion when Irene turns up, knowing what she knows and asking questions, but recovering quickly to become the violent, dangerous person he is. Holm also has a really good knack of playing bad guys. There are also a couple of people that Irene interacts with in most of the universes, and they are played extremely well. And one interaction in particular, Jonathan, played by Jim Cummings, I would have loved to see the story between Irene and him fleshed out more. Next, let's take a look at how the film handles its plot and pacing. Redux Redux follows Irene Kelly as she travels through parallel universes, repeatedly killing her daughter's murderer. As she becomes consumed by vengeance, her humanity hangs in the balance. The film starts off strong by plunging you right in the middle of one of Irene's revenge scenes, and doesn't pause for breath until after 15 minutes in, where it slows a little so we can find out more about Irene. But even then, whilst we are getting some backstory, Irene never seems to stop moving and relentlessly fighting. There are a couple of slower expedition dump scenes, which, for me anyway, added a little more human side to her character, but they don't really stop the flow and allow you to think of these characters as more human. Okay, so now let's have a quick look at how the film is put together. Written and directed by Kevin and Matthew McManus. I haven't seen anything that these brothers had directed previously, but after enjoying this, I might need to have a good look at their filmography, as this really impressed me. In an interview with Collider, the brothers said they would love the idea of exploring how other characters would use the same technology in the same world. And to that end, we do get a nod to that multiverse in the film. What works so well is that Redux Redux arrives at a point where audiences already understand the basics of multiverse storytelling. Because of that, the film avoids drowning itself in exposition, and instead trusts the viewers to fill in some of the blanks themselves, rather than obsessing over rules and diagrams. The focus stays firmly on grief and character. The film gives you enough world building to make the universe feel larger than we've seen on the screen. There are hints and hidden systems, routines and other people using this technology for their own purposes, which helps the world feel lived in, without stopping the story dead to explain everything. The actual machine they travel through the multiverses in is really impressive. It seems very heavy, which adds to the urgency of how they manage to move it and keep it hidden. It also has a dangerous and more industrial feel than the mystical magic-based style of the multiverse travel seen in the MCU with Doctor Strange, which makes it stand out from those multiverse films. Okay, so now let's see how Redux Redux stacks up with my ratings. For cinematography and soundtrack, this film gets 4 out of 5. I would say the lighting is one of the weaker points of the film. There is a really good variety of shots throughout, with the directors making good use of close-ups, wider shots and framing to keep the scenes visually interesting, and the locations themselves are used really well. However, the decision to rely heavily on natural lighting leaves a lot of scenes feeling quite dark and dreary, which stops the cinematography from rising above good. And I will add that the soundtrack was suitably menacing and moody, and it definitely worked for me. For visual effects and gore, the film gets 4 out of 5. There were plenty of great explosive action scenes, and it all felt very real, while the sci-fi elements felt understated, solid and believable, rather than over-explained and flashy. A lot of the action also felt like it relied heavily on practical effects, which gave the explosions and violence a much more grounded feel. They really didn't hold back on the gore in this film, and we get to see a lot of the ways Irene takes her revenge in all their glory, which keeps things interesting. For characters, the film gets 4.5 out of 5. This is a film that is very character-driven, and the 2 main characters and the killer in this are very well written and acted. The 2 actresses really sell their chemistry and growth in the relationship and the way they see themselves as the film develops, and even the minor supporting characters were really well acted. For enjoyment and rewatch value, the film gets 4.5 out of 5. This is a really good film with an original story that doesn't waste its time worrying if you understand the intricacies of travelling the multiverses, and just lets you in on enough, and it definitely wears its influences on its sleeve. I'll definitely be watching this again. It's easy to enjoy the 2 lead characters and their interactions, and it really is a very interesting film, and it definitely keeps your attention. I know I was left wanting more stories from this world and finding out more about it. For a personal score, this is a 4 out of 5-star film. It's a shame that it didn't get a wider theatrical release, as this fairly low-budget indie sci-fi film doesn't fall into the trap of over-explaining the technical side, and focuses on the emotional side of things, and deserved a heck of a lot more attention. It also moves along at a good pace to keep you glued to the screen. So that's all for this video. All in all, I would say this is a really good film that uses the sci-fi side of things as a tool rather than the whole story. Have you seen Redux Redux? What did you think of it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and remember, this is only my opinion of this film. It'd be a boring old world if we all like the same things. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe and click that bell. I'd love to have you back with me for more. This is Jackie signing off. Take care, and see you next time.